What do you do if even that suggested bid is not giving any impressions? That's not abnormal, unfortunately. It's not abnormal to not get impressions. And so what I would say is that raise your bids, test raising bids. A couple of reasons why this could happen as well is you might have that particular search being triggered through another one and somewhere else in your ad structure for that product. So that could be another reason why. So if, for example, if that keyword is performing in, say, a phrase match and you go and you launch an exact match, it might take a while for that impressions to start shifting over to the exact match, which is fine and expected. Okay, so you can test that. I would honestly just test like increasing the bids here. Oftentimes, even if you're using the suggested bid, that doesn't necessarily mean that's a high enough or aggressive enough bid. The suggested bids are a good start, but you always need to optimize from there. There are other ways to do it, right? So anything that is going to increase your conversion rates will increase your ranking. Anything that increases the amount of orders that you're getting through that specific search will increase your ranking. That's why a lot of times sellers will do these things in tandem, like say testing coupons, potentially testing lower price point if you have the margins enough to be able to do that. If there's any sort of listing optimization that you've been putting off for a while. I also just today filmed, so expect it out within the next week or so, filmed a video on how to analyze your conversion rates versus your competition. There's some stuff going over the search query performance reports, how to use those to analyze. So if you're brand registered, I would keep a lookout on the YouTube channel. That's going to be helpful as far as like analyzing how is your conversion rate versus your competition. Best combination of map types for branded, generic, and competitor keyword targets. Yeah, I'm still a huge fan of using all the above. So we use exact match, phrase match, and broad match for pretty much all targets across the board. And now it does somewhat vary depending on the account budget and then what stage we're in, because you noticed when I was talking about product launches, I recommended launching specifically an exact match and sticking to that for a while. So I do think that that is applicable. What I would say is that the more aggressive you want to target something, the more specific your match type should be. And that's not because there's anything wrong with phrase match or anything wrong with broad match. Everything has their place. The difference between those is when I am aggressive in exact match, I can be 100% confident that my spend is being allocated to that specific search term. If that decrease in ad impressions means less people are seeing your product through the ads, and then the sort of cumulative, the way that the ads influence organic ranking is if the ads sales are happening through that one specific search. That's why I talk about if you're going aggressive, go an exact match so you can influence the sales velocity through that one specific search. If both the organic and the advertising combined make a greater sales velocity on that one shopper search, then you will climb up in rankings. And that is exactly and precisely the reason why a lot of people will push their advertising, they'll see their organic ranking climb, and then they'll say, oh, this is unprofitable, and they'll cut their ads, and then their ranking decreases. And they're like, what gives? It's because those ad sales through that shopper search were adding to the cumulative or total sales that you are getting through that one shopper search. And without those additional ad sales, you do not have enough sales velocity to be able to push past your competitors. Business reports will tell you the sales that happen the day that that transaction is enacted. So if I go into, if I go to Amazon as a shopper right now, I want to purchase a product, bang, done, add to cart, ship it to me. That transaction is going to show up in that seller's business report as the day that I bought the product. However, if they go into their accounting section of their reports and they look at when they actually, when that accounting records the sale, they're probably not actually going to see that transaction till maybe a day later. And the reason why is because you don't actually get paid as a seller until that product ships. Hello, and welcome back to another Ask Junglr Live. This is the day of the week show. where you get to show up and ask your Amazon advertising questions, and I will give you the very best answers possible. We do screen shares here, we share assets, we talk about data. You'll see me do analysis in real time, which is always fun, slightly nerve-wracking because I gotta actually know what I'm talking about. So if this is your first time joining in, as always, welcome. If you're catching this randomly on one of the platforms we're streaming on, we appreciate you popping in to say hi. So for those of you who do not know who I am, hey, my name is Elizabeth Greene. That is me at the top of our website. What we do is we run Amazon advertising for brands, more specifically brands who are looking to grow their sales without having to sacrifice profit. Ads are a fantastic lever to pull when you're trying to grow your sales, but if you pull that lever a little too hard, you in some cases can go out of business. And so our goal is to be able to have you have effective advertising without having to sacrifice margins, or if you are, in the beginning, probably not going to be profitable up front. However, you should have a runway to be profitable. And so that's kind of the focus of the lens in which we view advertising strategy. And with that, it looks like we already have some questions in the chat. So yeah, if you are listening in, if you got an Amazon ad question, no matter how big or how small or direct it is, feel free to drop it into the chat. I will pull it up on screen and we will give you your answer to your question. So you can go in today and improve your ads, which is super exciting. Quick announcements. If you were not aware of search query performance reports, a fantastic and exciting breaking news as of last night. I was talking to some really good friends. I have some really exciting projects coming up both internally as well as ones that you're going to be able to get access to. I'm so excited for that. Definitely look out for that announcement when it comes. I was talking with a good friend and he said as soon as he saw it, he sent me the screenshots. There's already people actively behind the scenes working on this because the announcement is that Amazon released search query performance reports in the API as of yesterday. If you're not using search query performance reports, you definitely should be, and expect all of those insights to be coming to tools near you as fast as they can get them out, because that is a really powerful analysis. However, it's a bit of a pain to get that information because it was not available in the API. And if it is available in the API, that means it's a lot easier for tool providers to pull that information in, which is fantastic. I am so excited for how that is going to be used. And with that, I guess I will pull up and we'll start running through Amazon ad questions, which again, you're showing up, you got a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. But first off, people are saying hi, hello, welcome. Looks like you got some amazing performance in here. All right, let's go through this. The first question is, how can we utilize unit session percentage for PPC? This is a fantastic question. And so the way in which we would use search unit session percentage, which essentially, you can think of your unit session percentage as your average conversion rates, which, by the way, unit session percentage will also factor in your advertising performance as well. So it's kind of like the average across your entire account. Now, the way in which we use this is sort of to benchmark how our ads are doing and also to gauge why we might be seeing certain sales trends. So one classic example, which honestly isn't necessarily how to use it for your advertising, But it is a really fantastic analysis. So oftentimes what happens is, if sales go up, sales go down, and the question is why. So the way in which we would sort of either troubleshoot this or try and get contextual clues on how we can continue to improve is to look at what we call the Amazon growth equation, which is essentially you have the number of shoppers getting to your listing, which is your sessions, and then you have your conversion rate, which is your unit session percentage. And then those two numbers multiplied together is how many orders you're getting. And then, of course, you also would multiply that times well, how much am I making at the end of the day? What's my sale price? And between all of those things, that's kind of the funnel that makes up your sales. And so to grow sales effectively on Amazon, you need two things. One of them is more traffic, and ideally better converting traffic. And so whenever you have, I'm sure we have those days where there's a sales drop and then your question is, okay, so what happened, right? The way that we would look at that is we would graph the sessions, so the traffic, and we would graph the conversions. And we say, okay, so is it that conversion rate went up or down, or is it that our traffic went up or down? If it's a traffic problem, then maybe we're not being shown organically where we were. Maybe we made some adjustments to ads and we lost some momentum there, and so we lost traffic. Then you can start to go and troubleshoot that part of the funnel versus, say, a conversion rate. Conversion rates go down. Okay, so sometimes it's a category thing. Like there was one product where we had one of the top sellers drop their price by $10. All of a sudden our conversion rate went down, not because we had done anything different, but the market had done something different. Namely, one of the competitors was getting super aggressive, and that affected us. And so you're looking for contextual clues, and then you get unit session percentage or your conversion rate is a really good benchmark. Again, it's something you should track religiously. And the goal here is to beat yourself. The other way that we would look at, say, unit session percentage is, again, with search query performance reports. So the question is, one of the things that you want to do when you're going after, say, ranking for a specific keyword, you want to know, how does my conversion rate track against market averages? And a fantastic way to do that is search query performance reports. So I would want to know, is our conversion rate strong enough to really advance or be able to capture that market share? Now, you want to be comparing your conversion rates inside of search query performance, but you can also look at, again, other conversion rate triggers. Now, another analysis, we use this as the benchmark, but one of the things that we'll do is we'll look at the unit session percentage for every single, we often do this on a parent ASIN, or you could do this on a child ASIN level. And then you want to look at that versus what your ad conversion rate is. Because if you're running really effective advertising, you should be continuously optimizing for the things that convert best for your product. And if you're doing that, then you're showing up on very specific search pages that make sense. So what we have found is that if you are running more effective advertising, your ad conversion rate should be at the very least the same, but ideally you want it to be slightly higher than your unit session percentage. And for us, this is not something that we would say optimize for necessarily. Again, it's more of an analysis tool to say, are we making good decisions on what we're targeting or what we're spending the most on in our ads? So the way that which you do that is you would put that in a grid and you say, okay, this is the unit session percentage, again, for the child ASIN or maybe the parent ASIN. And then you would say, okay, this is my advertising conversion rate, again, for the parent ASIN and the child ASIN. You just look at those two things. And then you'll say, oh, okay, so on this parent ASIN, I found that we actually have a lower ad conversion rate than unit session percentage. And so what we would want to do there is then go and dig down into our advertising strategy and say, okay, so which campaigns, which, ad targets are we advertising on this product? And then what is our conversion rates for that is the way that can be really helpful. And I would say 9 times out of 10, almost 10 times out of 10, what we found is that when the ad conversion rate is less than the unit session percentage, we're often spending too much on ad targets that do not convert well for the products. And if you're spending a lot on ad targets that aren't converting, that typically means higher A costs, you're struggling to rank. It's just not something that makes sense. It's not a strategy that makes sense. So that is how we would kind of go through and benchmark those things. All right. This is a really good question. So I wanted to ask if one keyword is too big, like 100,000 search volume, and other keywords are niche, are 3,000 to 4,000 search volume, and 70% of sales come from that one big keyword. What should be the strategy to rank? Main keyword is giving 90% ACoS, and the broad is giving around 60% ACoS. Actually, let me check my audio setting. Okay, audio settings are good. Cool. All right, let's pull up an analysis sheet I have that goes through and shows forecasting. Because oftentimes what we found is it's not that these really high search volume. Actually, I have high search volume keywords in here. Let's do this. Okay. All right, let's do some math on the fly. So we have a very similar keyword here, which is like dog toys. So this was, I think, like a mock analysis I did. This is our forecast based, like this is how we could forecast out launch budgets and launch strategy. So for something like this, and here I think it's saying the daily orders that we're trying to get to rank on this keyword are only 4. I think we manipulated this. So on average, like say to rank, and this is helium 10 CPR score is the way that we would look at this. And so we're saying, okay, on average, we're going to need to get 10 orders here, and our average cost per click is probably going to be around $1.69. Again, this is pulling from Amazon's API, and this is Amazon's suggested bid. Now, the target daily orders to rank and the suggested bids are a average. We also want to look at the max suggested bid because the suggested bids are lower, but max suggested bid, and oftentimes you need to go even higher than this, maybe $2. The other thing that you need to forecast this out is going to be the conversion rate. So what is the no, let's click the rate. Average conversion rates. What is our expected conversion rate? So if we had a higher conversion rate of 10%, it's going to take us less. So essentially what you're doing here is you're saying, okay, the higher the search volume, typically, the more competitive it is to rank on. So say we had to make up, I don't know, 15 daily orders here. So we take the 15 daily orders and we say, okay, so to get 15 orders, if we have a 10% average conversion rate, it takes us on average 10 clicks to generate one of those orders. And then we're saying it's going to take us $2 for every single one of those clicks. So 10 times 2, 20. And then we can say, okay, we know we need to make 15 of those. And so you can multiply that. I think that's correct math, $20 per conversion, and then you can multiply that 20 by 15, which gives us an average daily budget of $300. So I need to spend $300 on average just for this one specific keyword to be able to even attempt to rank on this. Now, here's the other caveat is if even this velocity has to be high consistently over time, and you have to have a strong enough conversion rate versus your competition to be able to even rank. So this is just what's going to get you on base is a $300, but how quality the product is and how well it converts is actually going to be the determining factor on if you can even make a dent in this keyword. Now, my guess is probably no. So you can see right here, we have a total, we have a forecasted budget for all of these. If we're going to go off of all of these keywords of like $831 a day, only for 9 keywords to go after, right? And you can see out of all this budget, 36% of that total budget is going to go to this one keyword, which is quite aggressive. So if we got rid of that, all of a sudden we're spending, $500 a day, which still might not be sustainable, but it's a lot better than 800. So that's kind of how you would want to think about it is it even possible to make a dent? Now, what I will say, so you're saying exact match is 90% ACoS, which is probably correct. Here you can see I'm forecasting for 100% ACoS because I have a $20 product price. I'm guessing so to go after it aggressively in exact match, that would be what you would want to do for ranking. So you probably want a single keyword exact match campaign, and you're going to go super aggressive with the bid, and the goal there is not profitability, it's to increase ranking. Now, if you are going after it to increase ranking, what you want to do is you need to make sure you're tracking your ranking on that keyword to validate, am I in fact increasing ranking? Because there's what you think you're doing. And even if you hit those daily sales, you might find, well, because it was a forecast, I need even more velocity to be able to rank on that keyword. So you want to validate that with keyword tracking. Ton of different tracking tools out there. The ones that we use is Helium 10, or there's another good one called Datarova that we use for keyword tracking. Datarova is a little bit, well, it depends on what plan you have. Sometimes Datarova can be a little bit more cost effective, but they display the data a little bit differently. It's nice to have multiple data points. So what we often do on these terms where they're really competitive, we don't think it really makes sense to put a lot of ad budget there because we know it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to be very competitive. It may not make sense for you. So in those cases, what we would recommend doing is probably doing what you're doing with the broad match, or it's either broad or broad modified, or maybe broad match, but you can still advertise on this keyword, but you wouldn't necessarily go after it for ranking purposes. So I might use broad match, I might use phrase match, I might even continuously use exact match, but I'm probably putting lower bids. I'm not trying to pump up my order velocity. I'm not trying to get super aggressive. My goal is just seeing, can I get some sales through this keyword? And that would be my recommendation. Now, again, you're going to want to check this and see, does it make sense? Can I rank on this? Do I have the budget to? I would run that analysis. So I'm not going to give you like a yes or no answer. But what I will say is that, again, you definitely want to be benchmarking these things. All right. The question is, should I categorize keywords by their performance? That's a good question. I would say I would want to categorize keywords based on which parent ASIN I'm advertising using those keywords. That's the way in which I want to see it, because to be honest, if all you look at is your advertising performance and you're not sort of connecting that back to the actual product performance, you can end up making some incorrect advertising decisions that, while if you're only looking at the ads in isolation may make sense, they're not going to make sense from a product growth perspective. So while it is helpful to know the performance of certain terms, you want to track that back to the specific strategy that you have for that campaign or for that product. And so in that case, I don't know if I would necessarily categorize keywords per se, as much as I would want to make sure that my keywords are grouped in campaigns with specific objectives. So an example was the one that I was going off, I was talking about before, this one where we're talking about, say, ranking strategies. And I was saying like, okay, so maybe this one isn't going to be as like, you're not as like cost conscious, or the goal is just to generate more orders and order velocity, and we don't expect to be profitable. I would want to be aware of that as I'm going through and I'm looking at that campaign. And again, I was saying like, validate it to make sure that you're ranking, right? Validate to make sure that the total sales as you rank are in fact growing. So you want to, again, use other data points other than just ad console to validate that it is effective strategy. But providing it is, you would want to optimize that campaign separate or differently than you would your other campaigns, which may be more profit conscious. Like, so an example there would be if you have like brand defense campaigns. There are some really like out of the box strategies that leverage branded traffic, in which you might want to be more aggressive. An example of this would be if you have a new product and you have a lot of brand search. and you launch a new product, well, then maybe you can go aggressively after that brand search with the new product, because you're essentially leveraging traffic that knows, likes, and trusts you, meaning those branded searches, to drive sales to a new product offering. In that case, maybe it makes sense for me to be aggressive. But outside of like those specific strategies, we would always want to run our branded traffic profitably. Again, unless there's like a competitor coming up against us. So there, again, the performance might be really great on branded traffic, but I don't necessarily want to categorize it based on performance, because again, I expect the performance to be good, and I don't necessarily want to go after these more aggressively. So it is a really great question, Casey, but I would say I would think of categorization more around strategy and product than I would around like individual specific targets. Again, because I always want to be connecting what I'm doing in ads back to overarching strategy for the brand, if that makes sense. Can you do a search query performance tutorial video? I already did. And let me find it for you, and I will pull it up, and maybe we'll see if we can drop it in the chat. We make way too many videos, honestly. There's way too many videos on our site. I have to make sure that I can find the correct one. But there is one on our site that talks about, I think we redid the image, so now I can't find it. But you want to look at, I'll find it. Trying to find if I can. Okay, here we go. It's this one here, which is spy on competitors, 2 free game-changing tools to analyze competitor conversion rates. Let me share this. It looks like you're watching on YouTube, so you should be able to go find it. I'm going to drop that into the chat. By the way, if anyone's watching on LinkedIn, it won't let me drop that in your chat, so like feel free to reach out to me, shoot me a DM. But that video does go over search query performance reports. It also goes after brand metrics, which is another fantastic way if you're looking to benchmark your conversion rates. Brand metrics is actually a little bit quicker. But I would say do expect tools to like be able to upgrade as fast as they can. There's some really smart people who I know in my circles who are like actively looking to grab that data and make it useful to sellers. Good question, Maurice. Maurice is asking, what are some of the negation criteria you use before deciding to negate a term? Obviously, certain amount of clicks plus no orders. Are there any other criteria like high clicks, low conversion? Yes. So some of the criteria, again, very classic. Are we getting a lot of clicks? Are we not getting any orders? Okay, great. Then, let's add that as a negative because you don't want to waste any money. But the other thing that we would look at is the relevancy. So an example would be, say there was a product that was glass, and yet you notice that there was a lot of searches that were popping up that showed either plastic or like non-breakable or something like that. And your product's obviously breakable because it's glass. And you might start to get some clicks because they might be interested, but then they might realize like you might start to see just those terms that never convert for your product at all. In that case, again, if it's irrelevant and we know it's irrelevant, then you would want to add those. Now, I will caution you against doing that too aggressively because there are often products that, in my observation, a very classic example was like there was an audit I was doing for a brand recently, and there was some search terms that were converting, and they were the keyword. They contained the word leather, and the product was not leather, and yet it converted at a very low ACoS. And so in that case, it's like, well, I know the product's not leather. I should negate this, but I validated that it has converted. And so therefore, I probably want to be a little bit more careful of just completely clearing that out. But if you are like if you have validated, like if I saw a whole bunch of clicks for leather and it's like popping up everywhere and, you know, all these other campaigns, and I'm noticing that, then I can be pretty confident if I added a negative phrase of leather, I need to just clear out that irrelevant traffic. And so that's the way in which I would view it. You also want to be careful, like, and just watch your products. So an example was we had, there was a brand I was consulting with, and they had a product that looked like it might work for a specific use, and yet that product didn't work for that specific use case. And what ended up happening is they got a ton of orders on that irrelevant search. And they even ended up ranking on that irrelevant search, which actually ended up causing a massive issue for the brand. But because that product did not work in that capacity, they got a huge uptick in returns, and there was this massive problem. And so you also want to be like very conscious of those things. So that's the other thing we would do. And then when you're asking about amount of clicks and no orders, that's one thing that I really like doing. And this can catch, again, those irrelevant things that might technically have an order associated with them. And so if all you're doing is looking for clicks and no orders, you might miss them. Is looking for terms with high amounts of clicks, only 1 or 2 orders, and they have really high A cost being, say, like over 100%, like 80, 90, 100%. This will pull up the terms with a lot of clicks and few conversions, which naturally means they have low conversion rate. And so oftentimes you'll find that these are the sort of the stragglers who kind of slip through the cracks because you have orders associated with them, but they're not really relevant. Yeah, so I think this is on the question earlier when you were asking about keywords that are too big. So conversion rate is around 17 or 18%, which is a great conversion rate. But what you really need to think about, it's not just your conversion rate, it's how is your conversion rate versus the conversion rate in your category. So again, I'm going to plug this video again, but for game-changing tools to analyze your conversion rates. This goes through how to use search query performance reports and how to use brand metrics to see how you stack up. Because if you're in a category where like your competitors are only at 10% conversion and you're at 17 to 18%, fantastic. You have a really strong product and you can dominate the market. But if 17 to 18% conversion rate and your category has on average a 25% conversion rate, in certain categories that's possible, you're not going to be competitive and your product will probably not do well. So although higher conversion rate is better, and like here you always want to be benchmarking your improvements on conversion rate versus your past conversion rate. So an example is if I change a main image, if I update my SEO, if I update my image stacks, if I add A+ content, does my conversion rate improve versus what I was doing before? Does my click-through rate improve versus what I was doing before? So you always want to be like upping the ante for yourself. But then the other thing you want to look at in addition to that is how do I compare against the market? And the higher you are versus the market, the more you're going to be able to win. All right. Asif says, hi, Elizabeth. I hope you're doing well. I am. Thank you for asking. Very kind of you. Last week, you mentioned that many PPC sellers make the mistake of not asking clients about the goals. Some clients focus on profit, while others prioritize sales and brand promotion. Since these require different strategies, how do you approach PPC when clients want profit versus when they want sales? What key adjustments do you make in each case? That's a really fantastic question. And I will add this nuance because I just went through this with a team member recently, is in addition to knowing what the specific client goals are, you also want to know how they are tracking them. So a very classic example would be, say you had a client who says they want to focus more on profitability. My follow-up question is, great. What are you looking at to see if profitability has increased? Some clients will look at total A costs. Some clients might be looking at ACoS and thinking that's profitability. Some clients may be looking at profit percentage, and some clients may be looking at profit dollars. So I want to know, how does that, like, what are we looking at? And not only do you want to know what they are looking at to benchmark, so you need to agree on the KPIs, you want to know what time frame they are looking at as well. So an example would be, a lot of clients will look over year-over-year performance. Is this month's total ACoS better or worse than what we did on the same month last year? Some clients will look at month over month. Is this month's total ACoS better than last month's total ACoS? But some clients will look at yesterday's data. And here's where client education comes in. So you're like, well, we can be up, we can be down, but we don't expect to see consistent improvements every single day. But over a longer span, say month to date, month over month, year over year, we should see improvements. And then, so then you agree upon what you're tracking and how you're tracking it, meaning what date ranges you're looking at. So that's actually the most important thing. And thing that most agencies get wrong is they just assume. They assume what the clients think is good. And so you need to be able to have those frank discussions and then find out if they are saying that, oh, ACoS equals profitability. You as a ad manager know that that's not true. Total ACoS has much more relation to profitability than ACoS does. And so then you can go about having that conversation of how we can have better benchmarks. So, okay, I know you're looking at ACoS and I get that, but can we maybe zoom out a little bit and look at total ACoS? Can we maybe zoom out a little bit and look at profit dollars? Is there a better way to measure this? Because if you're measuring the wrong thing, you're going to be optimizing for the wrong thing. And so that's my rant on that. But you had questions on strategies. So this is the way you grow profitably, is this equation. So what we have here is essentially this pyramid. Your total ACoS, which if you are looking to benchmark your advertising versus your profits, total ACoS is the best metric to do that. Now we can talk about profit dollars and how that relates to profit dollars, which is the other really solid place you want to benchmark. But the problem with profit dollars, if I'm being honest, is profit dollars factor in a ton other, like a much more other fees. So if your client gets hit with, they have overstock of products, so they get hit with inventory fees, or that's like the most common one, and all of a sudden profit dollars goes down. If they don't know how to read the P&L correctly, or if there's not really a P&L, then sometimes it's, oh, there's an ad problem, when it's not an ad problem. It's again, just a P&L problem. And so you do want to make sure that you're differentiating that. But the best way is really, okay, what percentage of my total sales am I spending on my advertising? And so really, to get a good balance in terms of total ACoS, it is a balance of these two things: your ACoS, which is your ad efficiency, and your ad sale percentage, which is your market share. And this side of the equation is why I'm so excited to be able to analyze the search query performance at scale, because it is notoriously difficult to balance and measure your market share. So essentially, the way that you want to think about this is you want to make sure that your advertising, which is your ACoS, that's how we're benchmarking, how we're doing, again, from a profit perspective on advertising, needs to be working towards greater market share for the products. Again, organic market share. So ad sale percentage is your ad sales divided by your total sales. And so here is the problem why, if we don't have a big picture and we're not growth focused, a lot of times what ad managers will do that's incorrect is they will say, oh, the client wants profitability. That means I have to have a lower ACoS. Again, that's where the prior conversation comes in. How are we benchmarking it? Because if the clients say, I want profitability, I'm at a 32% ACOS. I need you to get me down to a 25% ACOS. Then what you're going to do as a good ad manager is you're going to say, okay, the client told me they need a 25% ACOS, and so I'm going to do that. Well, actually, let me show you that. I hope you guys don't mind. I'm treating this as like a training module. Like, this is exactly how I would do this for my team. Like, this is how I teach my team. So hopefully this is helpful for you. But let's say, for an example, let's say we have a $25 product. We have a conversion rate of $10, and we have a cost per click of $1. Okay, so we have a 40% ACOS. And the client says, I need us to get to what was this? Like a 25% ACOS or something. I need to get down to 25% ACOS. So what you have to do as an ad manager is there's two things you can do to improve ACOS. One is you can decrease your average cost per click. The second thing you can do is increase your average conversion rate. Now, increasing your conversion rate is very, very, very difficult to near impossible if all you're doing is optimizing ads. Now, the way you would increase your conversion rate if you're optimizing ads is just make sure that the targets that you are spending on have a higher and higher conversion rate. And so there are scenarios, and we run many of these, especially in clothing, where our ad conversion rate is 2 times what our normal conversion rate, our unit session percentages. That is possible, but that might mean that you can't target some of those broader terms that you need to target. So here, to get a 25% ACOS, I need a 16% ad conversion rate. It's probably going to be really hard for me to take a 10 to a 16 only by ad optimizations. I'm going to need to look at things like listing optimization to help increase this. But what we can do is so you're probably going to have to lean on dropping your cost per click. So to get a 25% target ACOS, I need to take my average cost per click of $1 and bring it down to 63 cents. The problem is that 63 cents is not going to give me as many impressions, which is not going to lead to as many clicks, which is not going to lead to as many sales as $1 CPC. So here is the very real scenario that you will get into if you do not pay attention to this equation. You're going to have your target ACOS of 25%, and then say the client only had, this is a pretty unusual scenario, you probably would have closer to 50%. Like, say they said, oh, my target, total ACOS is too high. I need to get down to 10%. I need a 25% ACOS. Well, what happens because you decrease the average cost per click, all of a sudden your conversion rate or your ad sale percentage goes up, which means more of your sales are coming from advertising. And this happens all the time. So I took my ACOS. Let's look at the other scenario. Okay. So let's say you had 32% ACOS and you had ad sale percentage of 15. So you have about a 16%. Let's just do 30. Make it easy. So I have a 15% total ACOS, and they say I need to get down to 10. And you say, okay, let me optimize the ads. So therefore, I'm going to go through here and I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to get down to 25. But wait, this only got me to 2.5. So I got to go lower. I got to go to 20, which means if I went to 20, my average cost per click, I'm bringing it down to 50 cents. I cut it in half, which means my ad impressions probably got cut in half, which means this ad sale percentage went from 50 to 70, and now I'm back at 14. Even though I had really good ad efficiency, I screwed up my market share because I pulled back too hard, and so profitability actually got 1 point better, right? This didn't get me where I wanted, and then, oh my gosh, this got even worse. I went up to 75, and all of a sudden I'm back to 15, and you're like, shoot, what do I do? Do I just keep optimizing down? I went down to 15, and then this one got worse, and it got to 80, and all of a sudden my accounts, it's getting worse, it's getting worse, it's getting worse. And that's the very real scenario that a lot of accounts find themselves in. So really what you need to be doing is balancing these two ends of the funnel. You want to say, okay, I have a 30% ACOS and I have a or maybe you had like a 60 ad sale percentage. So 60% of your total sales coming from ads, 18% total day cost. That's too high. What do? I need to make sure that I dive into this ad spend that's driving this 30%. And I say, okay, where do I need to get more efficient? Where am I overspending? And then where do I need to make sure that I protect, because that's driving this market share? So on the pieces of the account that you can sort of drive up that ranking or maintain that ranking, you need to be protective of those. That's why in a prior question, they're saying, hey, should you group targets by performance? If you do that, you could make incorrect decisions. So you want to group them by strategy and by product. So if you're being even more ninja with this, you're then going down into this equation and you're looking at it on a product level and then saying, okay, this is my problem product where I need to bring this down. What can I do in terms of ad efficiency that's actually going to not decrease this? This is actually going to decrease, not increase, and then make sure that you're managing the two parts of the funnel that way. Now, easier said than done, but that would be my strategy. And then what I would be doing from a profitability standpoint is I would be very lean on the things that I know I can be lean on. So my auto campaigns probably aren't going to lead to better ranking. Maybe some broad match keywords, category targeting, all of those kind of strategies are like, these are for profitable traffic. Am I getting profitable traffic? If the answer is no, well, then we can be more aggressive with those optimizations. Our goal here is profitable traffic. And then if my my ranking keywords, those ones I'll probably have higher ACoS on. And the goal is to balance out that strategy so you don't end up at a loss. And again, so you can balance those sides of the equation. Ashley's asking, what tips for advertising expensive products? Is it possible to rank well for them since they are not competitively priced? That is a really good question. And actually, I just went through this with someone who was asking me that same question. So one of the things that I would look at is on the keywords. I'm just going to go to, I don't typically go like water bottle or baby blanket. I would want to look at some of the top key terms. Again, I'm not going to say that I am a product sourcing expert, but I am an advertising expert. And so what I would want to do is look at this and say, what does the organic search placement look like? I'm not talking about sponsored ones. I'm ignoring those, but I'm looking at and say, okay, so this is $18, $11. Okay, so this is $26. Again, pay attention to the branded. So you notice here Stanley is $45, but that's because they're Stanley. That's why they can charge $45. Other people probably can't. Okay, so this is 35. This is okay. So it's a hydro jug. All right. But this is the 30. Looks like it has a lot of things. You're just going through. Again, you're paying attention to which are sponsored. They paid to be there. I don't want to take a look at those. But I do want to know what is ranked here and take a look at who is branded, who's non-branded, all of the above. Again, little sponsored ones sneaking in here. And then just say, okay, are there products that are on here that are actually on the higher end? Because the worst, I'll show you what this looks like. I think last time I looked at it. I think it's plastic cutting board. Last time I looked at it, I'm pretty sure, unless somebody came out with something and some markets change over time. These are, sponsored because these are wooden. I don't want to look at wooden. See how these are like $6, $7, $4. This is wood. I don't even know why they're here. $21, but that's a pack. $8, 21, 14. You see how that's like, maybe this one has a set. Maybe this one, that's sponsored, $4. Okay, that one's a big brand here. $6. Man, I'm not seeing a lot of room for high price products. This tells me that plastic, and you might say like plastic cutting board sets, thick plastic cutting board. You can kind of take a look at, okay, so where are the higher price points? Ooh, search query performance is phenomenal for this, because what search query performance actually lets you do is look at the average selling price on a specific term. I believe the product opportunity explorer also shows you what is the average price point for this specific term. So that's like a more scalable way to take a look at this. But sometimes just looking at search pages. So that's one tip I have for you, is just see how difficult it is in the market. Like, is it a possibility to rank? Well, if there's a little bit higher price point products ranking, then consumers are purchasing the higher price products on that search page, and that is helpful as well. Now, the other thing I want to tell you in terms of the optimization for higher price products is it is very common to have very erratic sales, especially in the beginning until you get any volume on higher price items. The decision takes a little bit longer. It depends on how high priced. Are you talking like $40? Or are we talking $200? Higher, once you get like close to or above 100, those products tend to have pretty low conversion rates. And so when it comes to ad optimizations, you'll see oftentimes like one day is 2% ACoS, the next day is 100% ACoS, and the next day you have like 20% ACoS, and it's kind of all over the place. You want to make sure you smooth out that sort of trend lines by looking at longer date ranges. So what we have found is more effective in higher price product categories when we're talking ad optimization is looking at, again, longer date ranges and basing our bid adjustments, budget adjustments, even placement percentages, like all of those things where you take a look at what are the orders, what is the ACoS, what is the performance, right? It helps to have those jumps sort of smoothed out by looking at longer date ranges. That's what I would say. Oh goodness, we're like flying through this. Oh yeah, so Ashley's saying products is in the $100 to $400 range. Yeah, you're gonna have low conversion rates, to be honest. You're gonna have low conversion rates. And also I'm struggling to advertise pet food products. It's a premium, so price slightly above the average. CPCs are so high, prices $25 and CPCs are $5 to $6. Any tips? Really, I would assume if it is a pet food product that you have subscribe and save. Sometimes it takes a little while to get access to subscribe and save. If you can, that is phenomenal, because if it is a consumable product like this, oftentimes what you're factoring in is the lifetime value of a customer. And subscribe and saves will help add to that. That's why the cost per clicks are so high. Oftentimes in supplement category, in like CPG brands, pet food, pet supplements, all of those ones where there's sort of that reoccurring purchase model. Brands who are more sophisticated understand that, and so they're willing to pay more to acquire a customer. There's a very classic saying in advertising. It's like the person who can afford to who can afford the most to acquire a customer wins. That's why like high conversion rates help. Really good margins help. Like you can afford to pay more to acquire that customer. And that's really what you're seeing played out in those cost per clicks, because cost per clicks are based on the market. So if your competitors are willing to pay more, your cost per clicks will go up, which does make it more difficult. So I would say, one, you want to go after where you have high conversion rates, because that will make up and offset the cost. I would want to do more limited testing. So an example would be, instead of like finding 100 keywords I'm going to test, I might test 5, I might test 3 to go after for aggressively for ranking purposes, especially. And then the other thing that you would want to do is you would, again, factor in that lifetime value. You'll see that play out in your total ACoS. So any of those subscribe and saves go in the business reports. So if you're looking at your ad spend divided by total sales, which is total ACoS, you will see that total ACoS decrease as you get more of those repeat customers. So you're looking for that number to improve over time. I wouldn't expect ACoS to improve over time, but you wouldn't want to see total ACoS improve over time. And then the other thing that you can do, this is a little bit more ninja, but I have an ad manager who is managing a supplement brand for us in a very competitive space. And one of the things that she does is she either set up alerts or set up tracking for some of the top brands that are ranked on the keywords that we want to rank on. And sometimes brands will test pricing and they'll test higher pricing. So one of the things that she'll do is pay attention to the market. And then if you notice some of the brands have increased their price, you can then go into your ads and get more aggressive with your advertising because you're now more competitive in that market, which can be helpful. So it's kind of between all of those things. All right. Casey is saying, thanks for taking the time to answer. Awesome. I appreciate the question. It was a fantastic question. I'm glad I can provide value. What is the best course of action to take when dealing with poor performing keywords? Should I put them in a separate campaign? Yes, typically that would be the best strategy. Most times if there's a poor performing keyword, we'll simply lower the bids. You can do, like, if you've determined it doesn't make sense for us to run on this keyword anymore, you can do something what we call like a soft pause, which is setting the bid so low that you determine you're probably not going to get impressions, but it's not all the way 100% pausing them. So that's something that you would look for. And other thing is recognize that there is going to be some sort of 80-20 to the account, meaning you would want to double down on the keywords that are driving greater sales for you and you do have better conversion rates, and just recognize that not every single target is going to have a high conversion rate. The goal is to find the targets that do and make sure that you're being more aggressive on those, or you are, again, putting most of your budget towards those things that are working the best. Working on your keyword-based forecast, from where would you pick a search volume value? From Helium 10, from search queries, both way different, even for the same period. You want to look at the same data set. So if you're looking at Helium 10 values only, you would look at the Helium 10 search volume relative to all the other search volume in that tool. If you're looking at search query performance, you would want to look at how is that performance, like what is that volume versus other search targets in the same tool. I wouldn't want to compare the two data sets because you're right, they are completely different. I would want to look at it relative to everything else that data set is reporting, if that makes sense. And then a lot of times, really, I'm not necessarily so worried about the volume in and of itself. I'm also more worried about how competitive that is. So an example would be like if I pull up this one again, where it was the dog toys. So example you could see here, like dog toys. It's really broad. Actually, let me show you this. I'm going to look at the search page. So let's go through here and let's look at dog toys, and I'll show you like the varied search on this page and why I wouldn't expect to have a high conversion rate here. And of course, this is going to take a second to load. But if I'm looking at dog toys, notice here, I'll grab Rufus is popping up too. But notice here, like I have the stuffed ones. This one is like a durable dog toy. There's, this pack. You have like balls. Let's see how varied it is. Like this is going to be for a really big dog because this is durable. This product is probably not going to work for this, somebody who's looking for this product, but this product is not going to be great for somebody who has a tiny dog. It's just not going to work. So if you look at this, over here, you have pet toys for small dogs. That has a lot more search volume. It's less, but this is more specific. So if I go on here, I would hope that anyone who has pet toys for small dogs, and this is how you can see if somebody's doing really poor ad targeting, is when you take a look at this search page, you can see, okay, so now we're starting to get more of the fluffy things. So these are for small dogs. They can get their mouths around it, right? I'm not seeing those super durable dog toys because it doesn't make sense for this one. So here's great targeting, right? This is extra small. And so, yep, so these ones, the aggressive chewers, they're probably not going to do well with like small dogs, right? This is a bestseller, so it's showing up, but I didn't see their advertising show up here, which means they're doing better advertising because maybe it converts, but again, small dogs may not be super aggressive. And then, for medium dogs, stuffed animals for dogs, like you can see how this is quite varied. I would want to know, like, where does my product fit in the specific market? So if I have a stuffed animal dog toy, yes, this has lower search volume, but stuffed animals for dogs, if my toy is, stuffed animal, or here, dog toy bunny has good search volume. Pink dog toys, if these are super specific to my product, yeah, maybe it doesn't have enough volume, but I could guess if I'm doing dog toy bunny. It's always interesting to take a look at these searches. And I'm should go because this is the last question and I'm over time. But if I take a look at this, okay, so these are bunny products. Great. This is a duck toy, right? This is not the specific one. Here we've got like a pig toy, which is not a bunny. These ones are specific to bunny. This is not a bunny, so this is a hedgehog, right? This person's paying to be here. This is a sponsored ad. Well, maybe it has a decent conversion rate, but maybe not. But if I have a bunny toy, so here you can see, and Amazon Basics is very kindly giving themselves the top spot here. You can see they did a great targeting here. So this is a bunny dog toy. Pet Supplies bunny, right? This is not. So they might convert here, but they probably don't have as good conversion rate because somebody's searching for dog toy bunny, very specific. Now we can get dog toy bunny small, dog toy bunny rabbit, rabbit squeaky, right? Bunny for large dogs. Large dogs, you probably want a bigger toy and it probably needs to be more durable. You can see how even if those have lower search, we can expect to have higher conversions on those terms. So for me, it's how well do I expect the product to convert? Where does my product fit in the market? Where did I have a competitive advantage? Where can I make the most impact in terms of sales and ranking as fast as possible? So typically our strategy, not always, it does depend on the client, right? Because the lower the search volume, the lower order velocity I'm probably going to get out of the gate. So if I'm only advertising on, say, a couple thousand search volume, I might not have hundreds of sales a day, right? But if I'm looking at like 300,000, 100,000 search volume, yeah, maybe I can have much higher order velocity, but I'm going to have to pay a lot for this. And I'm up against some really competitive people. And my, pink durable bunny toy for small dogs is not competitive here because dog toys is so varied. I don't know if I have a competitive advantage on that search versus stuffed animal toys for dogs. That's more specific. I have a more competitive advantage on that one specific search page, if that makes sense. So that's what I would go after more is the relevancy, the hard hitting out of the gate. And then from there, you also kind of want to filter for, we like to look in the beginning at least a couple thousand search volume. I would want at least 1,000 search volume to really go after it. Because again, we are like, we do want to move volumes. What you want to shy away from is, oh, this one key term is super specific to me, but it's like 300. So it's getting like 50 searches a month, right? Are you probably going to get even one order a day off of that? Probably not. Not just because you're doing anything wrong, but because the search market. So that's kind of the different way in which I would think of that. Awesome. So with that, I think I actually got to all the questions today, which is amazing. I appreciate all of you showing up. I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope this was valuable to you. And so again, if anyone heard what I had to say, was interested, wants me to take a look at their advertising, wants an audit, feel free to go to our website, which is junglr.com, junglr.com. There is this link form at the bottom. Get on a call with me, get a free audit on the calendar, and we will go over your ads, let you know what you think, let you know how to improve. Our goal with those is just to say, hey, I hope you found value in this. I hope my goal with the audits is to absolutely blow you away and you to be like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I would love to work with you. But either way, regardless, we'll get you the audit and then Hope it is a value add to you. And with that, I appreciate it. We have come to another end of one of these segments. Always enjoy these things. Always enjoy talking Amazon ads. I will be here same time, same place next week. So make sure you join for that. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.